a Nobody's Project production. Before we get into the cold open, would like to welcome you to the start of the Too Many Arseholes social project and this first episode in the podcast series. We hope you enjoy this informative, mildly entertaining, exploratory, and importantly, interactive presentation. Because essentially, everything we have brought together for this social project is about having better conversations. It's about reinterpreting parts of the world around us and finding a way forward to a greater humanity. Hey, let's have a better conversation, and not one that ends with, well, they're just a fucking arsehole. Why does the conversation always stop there? Why can't we continue the conversation to better understand why they're an arsehole? Have they always been an arsehole? Are they only an arsehole to a particular person or a certain group of people? How exactly would that conversation go? What are the right words to use, the nuances to understand, and what outcomes do we want to achieve? Rather than work with abstract ideas, can we utilize the latest neuroscience, psychology, and anthropology as a basis for this better conversation? Can we learn to better identify and understand these people around us who display pathological behaviours towards us? And can we do this all by simply having a better conversation? With having a better conversation, we can start to unmask the whys behind the, why the fuck did they do that? We can identify behaviours, decisions and situations where someone isn't playing by the trusted member of society rulebook. Wouldn't it be better to understand those pathological behaviours and these arsehole people that attempt to influence, manipulate and deceive us? And importantly, can we better promote those that do play by that trusted member of society rulebook? Culturally, we throw around phrases like psychopath and sociopath. But interestingly, whenever you do the research into these words, their actual definitions quite often differ, and these definitions are inconsistent with how we see these words used generally today in a wide range of media. When doing a simple initial online search for words that describe people who are self-centered and make unempathetic decisions a lot, the terms psychopath, sociopath, narcissist, and antisocial personality disorder were the only commonly available words we could identify. The other phrase most suitable was pathological, as in, they're a pathological liar. None of these words are suited to what we need to have this better conversation. They are more often than not the extreme end of the behaviours we are wanting to discuss. We need a simple noun to create a base level of discourse in our society around these people, because these people and their behaviours are having a negative effect on our social cohesion. They take advantage of one of our primary values, social trust. They're able to succeed in their goals because they are not distracted by considering or caring for others. So, who are they? What is this noun we need to start this better conversation? Something simple, something common. What can we call all these arseholes in our lives? And there it is. Arseholes. There's so many of them. There's just too many arseholes. Too Many Arseholes is a social project looking at the rise of pathological behaviours in our society and the erosion of social trust, creating a better conversation around why this is, and finding a way forward to a greater humanity. Today's episode is an introduction to Season 1 of Too Many Arseholes. This podcast is also part of a larger social project that we want you, the listener, to join in on. Key to this project is bringing together threads from many academic disciplines to create a body of knowledge we can develop with you to help us all with having better conversations around these pathological behaviours in our personal and social circles. Thanks for joining us today for Season 1, Episode 1 of Too Many Arseholes. In today's episode, we are looking at what's the underlying premise of the project? What is social trust and pathological behaviours? We are also going to identify who are these arseholes and ask the question, Why are there too many? We will explore what events and cultural changes have occurred over recent history that has brought us to this social pandemic, and let's together start to explore themes and lessons from our past. What can we learn from neuroscience, psychology, and anthropology to help base this better conversation in fact and peer-reviewed research? What knowledge and words have we lost from our past that would help us identify, understand, and manage these pathological behaviours now? And how to start having better conversations with those you trust around these arseholes in our lives. And so thanks for joining us and coming along on this journey of reflection and discovery as we attempt to unpack and better understand why there's just too many arseholes. A good place to start this project, podcast, and season 1 is by outlining the premise of this social project. And that premise is, if being a psychopath or a sociopath is a mental disorder, then is behaving like a psychopath or sociopath towards at least one person or group also a disorder? Should these pathological behaviours be called out? Should these arseholes or those affected by them be able to seek support? And in severe cases, should the person behaving pathologically be required to get treatment and or support similar to a person with a gambling addiction, an alcoholic attending an AA meeting, or at its extreme, should an arsehole, because of their actions, be referred to the criminal justice system? Before we get into the ideas and themes behind this project, we're going to need to lay down some basic ground rules and guidelines. The first rule is that we are not going to be diagnosing people. Let's leave that to our qualified psychologists and psychiatrists. But we can definitely identify and call out pathological behaviours when we see them for what they are. The second rule is that we won't be naming or shaming these arseholes as part of this project. They need our help, not humiliation. Although, if it's publicly known information and it's in the news, then we can discuss their decisions and behaviours to the benefit of having better conversations around this growing social challenge. Thirdly, we do not want to be the authority on academic research or studies. The institutions and universities have this covered already through structures like the scientific method and academic rigour. But that shouldn't stop us from bringing new ideas and observations to the social discourse. And finally, we always want to be open to new ideas or variations of ideas, as this will always make for better conversations. However, they must be sound and from trustworthy sources. A key driver for this social project is defining and understanding what a pathological decision or behaviour is, what it is not, and we want to understand the characteristics of pathological behaviours. We will explore and refine how we characterise pathological behaviours throughout this series, but for now let's just start with the basics. A pathological behaviour is a behaviour that works against the social norms and breaks someone's belief in social trust. It is not their words, it's their decisions and their behaviours. Importantly, it's the intended outcome of the behaviour or the decision that defines its pathologicalness. A good example to start with is the employee who is trusted to work collaboratively within a business's commercial interests. But they lie and they manipulate the figures and the people in their team and throughout their workplace to enhance their promotion and progression, but ultimately to the detriment of the organisation and the people within it. That is a pathological behaviour, and that person has a pathological association with their work colleagues. Outside of work, they may be a trustworthy, conscientious family member and a respected community member. They're clearly not a psychopath, but they do have an obvious pathological association. For this project, we have chosen to use the word association to cover all the different ways people interact with each other. There are formal associations, for instance, like an employment agreement, a marriage, or an oath of service. There are informal associations like friendships, teammates, and voluntary community involvement. There are direct associations for when you interact directly with someone else or in a group, and there's indirect associations including newsreaders, politicians, public officials, entertainers, and other prominent public figures. There are public associations when we briefly engage with people to buy or order something, share in a public event together, or even when we share our roads and our public transport. But there are many people who we don't have anything to do with. An association is not an opinion of others, but it is how we choose to behave towards others and how the decisions we make affect those we associate with. Underlining every association we have in our society, whether it be direct or indirect, formal or informal, is the implicit expectation of social trust. It's a defining point of pathological behaviours that they do break our expectations of social trust. Social trust, which is also known in the psychological communities as general trust, is the social rulebook that each society lives by. It includes, but is not limited to, the laws of the land, the rules, the etiquette, manners, and other social structures that define acceptable community behaviour. But there are also unwritten rules. You shouldn't lie to others. If you meet someone and you say hi, you'd expect them to say hi back. If they don't respond with a hi, then a social norm, a trusted behaviour, albeit a small one, is broken. An acknowledgement, a polite thank you. It's all these formal and informally agreed behaviours that make up a society that is stable, predictable, and safe. Living in a trustworthy community is a primal need for human beings and one that creates a lot of stress and anxiety when it is absent. These behaviours that create socially trustworthy people and a socially trustworthy society didn't just appear. They have evolved over time, and they are a very important part of our species makeup. A key component that makes human beings who we are is evident in the fact that we can, and do, live in societies and communities. We can interact with each other civilly. We can trade, celebrate, and support each other in times of need. Human civilization is greater than the sum of its parts. And a stable civilization is one where all the parts behave with a base level of alignment. The increase in knowledge over the last few decades into what makes our societies possible identifies that we have genetically evolved and have become neurologically wired to be able to maintain a level of social trust and behaviour that's appropriate within our communities and societies. Social trust is the understanding that people can be trusted to maintain your needs such as safety, security, nourishment, as well as other basic human needs. The notion that the world is generally a safe and predictable place is a hallmark of a strong society. Without social trust as a key evolutionary characteristic, we would still be some version of primate. So who are we talking about then? Who are these arseholes? Well, we're potentially talking about any adult human being. The American Psychological Association, the APA, states that around 50% of all people display some psychopathic traits. But more concerning is that 25 to 30% of people display significant psychopathic traits. These are our arseholes. They're not psychopaths. They're our abusive partners, horrible bosses, predatory priests and sports coaches, self-interested politicians and profit-focused business leaders. Notable omissions from getting the arsehole tag are our young people. We are not talking about anyone under legal age, which, depending on your country or local jurisdiction, can be anywhere between 16 to 21 years of age. This includes teenagers, preteens, children, and infants. In a later episode, we will be discussing the maturing process of children from birth through to legal maturity. This is mostly due to the neurological development required by children. It's a very important part of having this better conversation, and we will explore different aspects of the maturing process over multiple episodes. Put simply and quite humorously, all babies behave like psychopaths, and it's roughly the first 2 decades of each life that is the time allowed for a child to grow into a mature adult. A mature adult who is expected to live in alignment with the laws and the rules of our societies. So who are we talking about then? Well, we're talking about people of every race, every religion, any sex or gender, all political spectrums. Anyone who your society deems is a mature adult. Essentially, we're talking about people who can drink, drive, vote, get a gun license, or take on a position of responsibility for others. That's about 97 to 99% of all adults. So if you're an adult and you fuck someone over by exploiting their belief in social trust for your own benefit, then yes, we're calling you an arsehole. But why do we think there's too many arseholes? Let's propose that pathological behaviours are on the increase throughout society in all areas, including homes, schools, workplaces, public spaces, media, social media, the internet, and politics. Incidents of bullying in schools and workplaces are rising rapidly. Influencers and celebrities have been outed for horrific and abusive acts. Young men especially are flooded with male archetypes who promote pathological behaviours. Toxic masculinity is on the rise. To better understand why there's too many arseholes, we're going to ask and attempt to answer questions like, are there too many arseholes because it's a difficult conversation to have? Are there too many arseholes because words like psychopath and sociopath are confronting? And if so, are there other words we can use instead, like arseholes? Are there too many arseholes due to the media and movies portraying extreme versions of pathological behaviours? Are there too many arseholes because it's personally confronting to understand the concept of pathological behaviours and pathological associations? And is it because there are no well-known references and easily understood literature on pathological behaviours as opposed to pathological people? We will explore these questions and more throughout this social project. So how did we get here? Well, although there is no limit to where in the past we can look to better understand this current societal challenge, notable themes we would like to start looking at include a general shift towards individualism as opposed to community-mindedness, and social breakdown in community participation due to a number of factors. Some of these factors include social media, the recent pandemic, and busy dual-income families. We will look at the significant role parenting has in raising children into mature adults. With less families involved in religious groups, less children are taking part in any form of rites of passage throughout their childhood and teenage years. It has mostly fallen on schools to try and pick up this gap in childhood development. Other themes we would like to look into further include the environmental factors, both natural or man-made, the rise of the industrial, technological, and capitalist eras, rapid growth in the corporate sector over the last century, and the financial upward mobility of people from younger age groups. Although there are many positives in these changes, we would like to explore the upward mobility of young adults, especially under the age of 35, who increasingly hold executive or directorship roles, and how these immature minds have influenced pathological behaviours in our corporate sector. And underpinning all these changes is the shift to hyper-capitalist societies where money, capital, is more important than humanity. The known history of the human civilization is extending now beyond 12,000 years with recent discoveries in Turkey. The recent rise in societal challenges are not the first time pathological behaviours have impacted on societies. There are many examples where societies worked out how to identify, restrict and manage these behaviours, and there are also many examples where they didn't or couldn't avoid the impacts pathological behaviours had on their society. Two examples we'll discuss this season include the Roman mos maiorum and the Kalahari tribe practice of the shaming of the meat. Briefly, the mos maiorum is a set of Roman customs and practices that formed early in the Roman Republic. It included set ages that young men needed to reach before being accepted into higher and higher roles. This included a minimum age of 25 to be a quaestor, typically 27 to 28 years old to be an aedile or a tribute, 30 to 31 years to be a praetor, and typically aged between 32 and 33 to be a consul or a senator. We want to explore how this structure ensured young men needed to work their way through to a consulship and a senator seat. This ensured young, immature minds and potentially pathological behaviours could be identified and would not impact on their system of social leadership. We will look to see if this was a considered social structure and also look at how it broke down near the end of the Roman Republic. We will also look at the practice of the shaming of the meat. This practice, which is from the tribes of the Kalahari Desert, ensured the returning men from the hunt are not praised for their hunting prowess, but are shamed and reminded that it is only a small part of the tribe's existence. We will explore why they felt it was important to manage these behaviours and ensure these toxic traits are kept out of the tribal culture. We will also look at the complex social structures that had to deal with pathological people getting into positions of power and influence. These will be some of our more juicier conversations. And We will look at other examples of how societies managed the rise of pathological behaviours in their cultures. Did it work, or did it fail? Separate to exploring our social history, we will also explore knowledge and language lost, almost, to history. Are there ways of having a better conversation that existed in the past? Can we look at past speeches, literature and laws that aided our ancestors in identifying and managing pathological behaviours in their societies? Do we need to create new words? A good example of a word often used and abused in the workplace is the use of the word assumption. It can be used to temper a person's understanding of what they should have expected in a given situation. Think of an example where you were told, "Oh, you assumed that would happen." Now, change the word assumed to the word trusted. In your example, did you actually assume or trust that the other party would behave in a trustworthy manner? Could a better response be, "I didn't assume. I trusted that this would happen because I want to live in a trustworthy society." We will explore many examples where words and phrases have shifted away from trustworthy societal norms. Words that have been redefined, new phrases that diffuse and justify pathological behaviours, and shifts in language that prioritise output and productivity over trust, conscientiousness, and humanity. So, let's have a look at the different sciences that study aspects of human evolution and the human brain. Starting with anthropology, which according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is the study of human beings and their ancestors through time and space, and in relation to physical character, environmental, and social relations and culture. There are new and developing anthropological studies and research into how human beings evolved to be the apex predator on Earth through developing the ability to live in societies and innately trust other humans. It is these new abilities that are often thought to support the creation of language, technology, knowledge sharing, and many other specific human traits. We will look at the changes in the birthing canal in women a few 100,000 years ago that aided in the development of larger human brains and the creation of more complex neurostructures and pathways. These evolutionary changes to the brain were also possible due to changes in local communities that allowed children to be raised for longer. Being raised for longer periods, which can now extend over 2 decades, has allowed the brain to develop enough to enable socially responsible adults. So what are some of these complex neurostructures that support socially trustworthy behaviour? Over the last few decades, neuroscientists have advanced their understanding of mirror neurons and von Economo neurons, and how these neurostructures may play a part in better understanding a person's ability to behave within societies. Mirror neurons are common in mammals and some birds. These neurons are a class of neuron that modulate their activity both when an individual executes a specific motor act and when they observe the same or similar act performed by other individuals. It is currently understood that the presence of these neurons play a major part in how a person acts and interprets other people's actions around them. The other neuron we will look at in the initial part of this project is the von Economo neuron. Von Economo neurons are a long neuron type that are present in humans, other great apes and some mammals. They exist in 2 locations in the brain and link the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex as well as other parts in this area of the brain. Brain scans of people with psychopathic disorders find that they have little to no von Economo neurons. The actual percentage of von Economo neurons not present in the brain of psychopaths is understood to be less than 20% than of that of a normal brain. This makes psychopathy a genetic disorder. Brain scans of people with sociopathic disorders similarly have little to no von Economo neurons, but it is understood to be due to damaged or destroyed neurons and not due to a genetic disorder. For the purpose of this project, we will propose for now that this is how we differentiate psychopathic and sociopathic behaviours. It is essentially the same behaviour either way, whether the neural dysfunction is due to genetic reasons or neurological trauma. A recent article published on the 14th of October 2022 by the Journal of Neuropsychiatry and Clinical Neurosciences explores von Economo neuron involvement in social cognitive and emotional impairments in neuropsychiatric disorders. The article refers to von Economo neurons as VENS, and the below section focuses on behavioural variant frontotemporal dementia, BVFTD, a neurological disorder that impacts socio-emotional behaviour. The section on neuropsychiatric implications from the article says, quote, "Stereological studies have indicated that VENs are selectively targeted in the early stages of BV-FTD and appear to be related to impairments in empathy, self-control, and social awareness. Other investigations support the idea that VENs are more susceptible to loss in persons with FTD than in a control group and in patients with Alzheimer's disease. Accordingly, VEN pathobiologically appear to contribute to socio-emotional deficiencies in persons with FTD, including empathy deficiencies amongst individuals with BV-FTD." End quote. The conclusion of the article summarises that VENs are unique in the neural structure in the frontal area of the brain, and that they have links to socio-emotional function, including social cognition and related autonomic functions. Although the specific functions are still unknown, it also calls for more research in this area, as the alterations of the VENs are evident in schizophrenia spectrum disorders, behavioural variant frontotemporal dementia, autism, and alcohol use disorders. Therapeutic options may be available for the above disorders with more research. What is very interesting and important for this social project is the fact that neurostructures have, up until recently, only been able to be analysed in post-mortem. In other words, we can't see if you're truly a psychopath until you're dead. Although there's good news, the latest fMRI scanners are now becoming strong enough to see VEN structures in human brains whilst the person is alive. An important part of this project is to better understand if we're able to scan and diagnose a person's expected ability to function in society based on results of mirror and von Economo neuron structures in their brain. Could this aid and assist parts of our society? Could this help you understand why you are the way you are? Before we start having these better conversations, we need to take a step back and have a new sobering look at the people around us in our society today. As a whole, we do have functioning societies. We do respect each other and maintain orderly conduct in our public places. And so we can approach having these better conversations from a place of compassion and understanding. Separate to discussing our arseholes, we also need to talk about the world around us all that is encouraging these pathological people. The world around us all that is contributing to the increase in pathological behaviours in our communities. Have a better conversation with a friend looking at, does our society support robust social and emotional maturing opportunities for our children? Discuss if our leaders provide respectful and socially minded leadership. Kick off a conversation at work about our entertainment, news and media. Do they bring us together as a society or separate and enrage us for more clicks, likes and shares? Are our young adults provided with what they need to be good community members? What exactly is a good community member these days? To start having your first better conversation, identify someone you know and trust, and start unpacking pathological behaviours about people you directly associate with in your home, community, workplace, and extended family. Alternatively, you may want to start this better conversation by talking about people in popular culture, politics, any public domain of our current society, people who you indirectly associate with. Make sure the people you have this better conversation with are familiar with the language, concepts, and ideas of this social project. Share this podcast, discuss the concepts, ensure anyone you choose to have this better conversation with is able to quickly understand the word use, the basic concepts, and the purpose of this social project. Talk about the pathological behaviours directly affecting you. Focus not on the words and the language these arseholes use, but look closely at their behaviours, actions, and decisions. An important purpose for this Too Many Arseholes social project is to work towards finding a way to shift the dial back towards stronger, trustworthy societies. We hope to do this through 3 steps. The first step is understanding the latest science, learning from history, and reclaiming parts of our language so we can have these better conversations. Then step 2 is having these better conversations and gaining more awareness of what causes societies and individuals to promote pathological behaviours. We will explore many social groups, institutions, organisations, politics, media, and other areas of society that have changed over time and now more and more promote pathological behaviours. It will take some time and lots of conversation to build a body of knowledge that can allow us to start talking about solutions as part of step 3. There is no one issue or cause, and there will be no one solution. That is why having better conversations is an important place to start. Ultimately, the project is working towards a way forward to a greater humanity by reducing pathological behaviours that negatively affect our societies, remembering that regardless of a person's character, we need to aid those with chronic pathological behaviours so they can be a valued member of society. We also need to support those with acute pathological behaviours in recovering back to being a trusted member of society. We must always remember that we are all human beings, and our humanity is our greatest strength. So now, please, join in the conversation. Thanks again for taking the time to listen in. Today's introductory episode included a lot of different subjects and themes that we will expand on over the first season of Too Many Arseholes. We also touched on some of the more heavier subjects today. It is important that we lay a strong foundation for you up front, so when we dive deeper into the topics in the upcoming episodes, you know where it all fits in the wider project mission. Too Many Arseholes is researched, written and produced by Nobody's Project. To put this series together, we have drawn on many sources, publications, books and podcasts. Throughout this season, we'll ask you to go and read or listen to an article, book or podcast to accompany these episodes. Check out our show notes for recommendations for upcoming episodes and also for our sources. It is important that we acknowledge and promote the people and the work they have published that has inspired this project. And finally, we are always keen to hear from you. Do you have an experience, idea or insight that you'd love to share with the project? If so, please send an email to contact@tooManyArseholes.com. Visit our social media pages and please feel free to get in contact and have a better conversation with us. To support the project, you can go to our Patreon page where you can get more information on the project and support us. You can also join our Patreon group and get early and ad-free episodes as well as other benefits. You can also like, subscribe and review the podcast to help spread the conversation, and the best way to support us is to share the podcast with your family, friends and colleagues so you can have a better conversation with them. Until we catch up again, give a shit about our planet and just please, don't be an arsehole.